Our guests in this segment include the mayor of the city of Martinsburg, Mr. Kevin Knowles.
Good morning, everyone.
Knuckles, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
City manager Andy Blake.
Good morning. This seems overly complicated. I think I'm out.
Yeah. There's a lot involved. There's a lot of moving parts, but I think we got it down for a while.
Okay.
Right? No?
It appears to be.
Yeah. Are you working on budget now?
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
When do you do?
Well, we have several meetings coming up in February and March to be able to put that together and ratify it.
Anything different this year than what you had in times past, Kevin?
Yeah, I don't. You know what? No, I don't see anything different. Of course, everybody's asking for money, and we all know that times are tough. It's not like the old ARPA days where the money was plentiful. So, we have to sit down and take a look at what our needs are first as far as the city before we look at anything on the outside.
How much do you get from the federal government? Do you know?
Well, we're an entitlement community, so we get CDBG and home funds.
CBDG, what's that?
Community Development Block Grant Funds. Okay. We're one of 7 cities in West Virginia that it's an entitlement community. So we get that. And we also, the good news is that we don't have an incredible amount of operational money from the federal government. But, for example, our social workers in the police department are funded through a federal grant. We have a couple of earmarks for a new ladder truck, street lights. Of course, we talked about the RAISE grant last time. A lot of that stuff's on hold right now. But in terms of operational expenses, we don't have much federal money.
Yeah, go back to the RAISE grant a second. That was for the park?
Yes, that was for the trail and the in Lake Thomas. Of course, the next step was a cooperative agreement with the federal government to do that. They've just put that on hold for now. We haven't been told one way or the other whether or not that's going to go through. It's on hold. So there has been no negotiations or anything with regards to a cooperative agreement. And the same with, the earmarks that we've received over the last couple of years. Things are just kind of paused right now, and we're waiting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and from the federal side, which agency was the RAISE grant being executed through?
Transportation, and then the ladder truck and street lights were put through HUD, and CDBG Home is through HUD. So we're just kind of waiting for a few weeks to see how things shake out and whether or not some of that stuff is unfrozen.
Andy, how does from a practical matter, how does the hold happen? You get an email that says this is on hold, or?
Well, the president put an executive order out, and then a judge issued an injunction. But with regards to communication with the RAISE grant and stuff, basically the project managers for the federal agencies, we had a kickoff meeting, for example, scheduled, and it was canceled, indefinitely postponed until the local federal highways folks gets direction from the national transportation folks.
So do you know how, if it gets turned back on, or if it's canceled permanently, do you know how you're going to be notified of that?
No.
It just, okay.
Yeah. We're keeping our hopes up that this is within his first 100 days, and then after that, start putting the spigot back on to where that the things that have already been promised or written for, that those are going to come through. So we're hopeful at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate you keeping it straight. You got to go to Elon Musk, dude. You're talking about the wrong person. You got to buy a Tesla.
That's why I keep laughing. They're asking me what's so funny. Well, this whole thing's so funny. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, it is which side of the fence you're on. A good friend's daughter, who works for international projects, got the telegram the other day and said, "You're fired. Money's grown up."
I don't think he meant it was funny, like haha funny. Yeah. I don't think that's what Kevin meant. So, as you said, most of your operational budget doesn't apply to federal funds. That's not going to harm the city of Martinsburg in that perspective. It's some of these capital things, correct?
Yeah, the city of Martinsburg has been very financially sound for a long time. I give credit to Andy and his staff and the city council over the years to be able to come up with a budget that makes sense and to be able to plan for the future.
There was some backlash about that grant. I don't know if you guys got a hold of any of it or not, but I know some of it came here in the direction of Mike Hornby. It had nothing to do with the federal grant, by the way, but there are people who don't distinguish between an elected Congress men like Riley Moore is versus a delegate like Mike Hornby is, and they were contacting Mike and saying, how can you allow $21 million to go to the city of Martinsburg to build a park? That's not what taxpayer dollars are for. Of course, Mike Hornby had nothing to do with that vote. So there were people out there who didn't think the government should have given you $20 million to build a park. That's not what tax dollars should be used for. Did you guys catch any blowback on your end on that like we did?
You know what? I have not heard. I've heard one rumble from a state delegate that we should have given the money back or not accepted. But other than that, everything's been in a positive note, all the way from the Senator Capito's office. She called me personally to congratulate and that she was supporting it all the way through the process. And I think we've heard nothing but positive stuff. I mean, this is, it's not just a park. It's an infrastructure that's going to connect the city of Martinsburg to Charlestown to be able to walk, bike, and whatever for that trail to be open. So I think it's beneficial to everybody in a lot of different ways.
There are those out there right now, especially, who don't think that government should be. It's not the government's job to build a park, right? I don't know whose job it is, but it's not the government's job to build a park. Do you have any type of public-private partnerships, any folks you work with who fund parks or are interested in establishing a park that would be donating land or giving you money for a park in some way where it's not a government-built park? Andy, do you get those kind of inquiries at all?
If any private sector person wants to build a park for us and or donate money, they know where to find us. I mean,
how do they get in touch with you to donate a park?
City Hall. Listen, I think that since 1776 that citizens have debated what the role of government is and what priorities should be, and I think that's continuing today, and I think it's fair to have that debate about what the role of government is from a city's perspective with the federal government or the state government. It has grant programs and the ability to apply for grant programs and funding, then I think it's our job to go after that funding. And if federal Congress people and or state elected representatives wants to change the philosophy of what government is, then so be it. But I think as long as the federal government and the state government are offering these programs, then the city should apply for them. And I can tell you, if our city doesn't apply for them, there's certainly other cities and jurisdictions that are applying for them.
But you were contacted by a state delegate who said you should give the money back?
I was not contacted personally. It was information that I heard third, fourth hand. So.
Any idea what the rationale there was?
It's
To give it back? I mean,
probably the same as what we're talking about here, that government shouldn't be funding parks. And let's keep in mind the city doesn't run parks in the city. We have Parks and Rec that runs we own the properties, and they run the services through the Parks and Rec.
And I would say it's just not a park like the mayor said. It's a multimodal trail system. There are some people, we've spoken about this before, that do not have vehicles, cannot afford vehicles, do not want vehicles. It's different varying modes of transportation to get around that goes right beside the new EPTA multimodal bus system. It goes beside the Caperton train station. It connects all the different parks. And again, the reality is that this is something that the United States Department of Transportation has available. And I also believe that Congress has set aside a certain amount of those funds for projects like this.
and is that the one that has been sidelined for the time being?
It's just paused for now.
Paused.
They're waiting to see whether or not what the direction is. But we haven't gotten any notice that it's been killed. They're just trying to figure out. I think they're sorting through what's going on with their bosses at the federal level before it filters down to the city and local and county level. And a lot of these policies ultimately filter down to the city and county level, whether or not it's policies at the federal or the state level. Eventually it filters down to the city and local level.
Do you have any regular or even one-off unfunded mandates that come down to you as the city government operates, from the federal government or the state government?
We have lots of unfunded mandates, from water, sewer, stormwater, building codes. I mean, we have a reporting requirements. We have many unfunded mandates that we have to comply with.
Can you give us a few specific examples of some of those?
Well, I think that stormwater is a perfect example of a mandate that's a result of the Clean Water Act NPDES permit that then results in a consent order from the EPA that says you must do this, but the city receives zero funding whatsoever for stormwater. There's the same amount of reporting, whether it's lead and copper service line mandates now on the water system. There's an incredible amount of reporting on wastewater systems. I can give you numerous examples of things that we are required to do, reports that we're required to do, testing that we're required to do, but we do not get any funding for. We get very little funding. Actually, we get zero operational funding really from the state or the federal government. It's all been transitioned to either grant and/or, earmarks are back, but it's all competitive grant and earmark processes. There's no federal or state revenue sharing to the city.
Do you have an idea or an estimate of the percent of your budget that goes toward complying with unfunded mandates from the feds or the state?
No, not off the top of my head. It's substantial.
Would it be as much as 10% of your budget?
Well, it depends on, we have different budgets, whether it's the general fund budget or the water or sewer or, if you're talking about the water, sewer, stormwater budget, then, a huge amount of that goes towards compliance, reporting, updates, whether it's chemical test or whether it's testing of the water quality. The whole stormwater program, I could say the whole stormwater program is probably, frankly, an unfunded mandate.
Mm-hmm. What is the estimated budget for the coming year for the city of Martinsburg?
Well, we're not quite there yet. We're wrapping up our January numbers, trying to get our February numbers in order to try to have the most accurate revenue source. I think last year, it was $25.4 million in general funds last year. I think our revenue estimates will be about the same this year. Our finance director, who's been around for 3 decades, we're our budget's due March 28th. We're trying to get real accurate numbers. The later in the process that we can get accurate numbers, the more accurate our budget will be coming July 1st, because the budget's due March 28th, but it's really not effective until July 1st, and it goes through June 30th of next year. So you're really talking about sometimes between 15, 18-month revenue forecasting.
Yeah, keep in mind that Andy said $25 million for the general fund. There are other funds throughout the budget process. So our budget last year overall was about $53 million, correct?
Yes, sir.
Total between everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. How much revenue growth did you experience this past year, if any?
Population growth?
Revenue, tax growth.
I'd say about 3%.
About
3% growth.
Yeah. What are your main sources of tax revenue, Andy?
Property tax, B&O tax, sales tax, and then, of course, with the enterprise funds, those are funded by, when I say enterprise funds, that's water, sewer, garbage, stormwater. That's fees.
As a percentage, which of the taxes contributes most to the city's budget?
B&O tax.
And what percent of your budget is B&O?
9.5%, 10%.
Oh, I think this year was about 23%.
23%.
23. And what percentage of your
Now,
budget?
see, a few months ago, I had all these numbers in front of me.
And
now
I
you're making
and I didn't ask those questions.
So you
and
didn't
had
ask
them
any
here.
of these questions.
I'm like
So
Roddy
I'm going
Piper.
by memory,
Just
right.
when you think you have all the answers,
That's
I
right.
change all
So-
the questions.
so-
Bill?
Yeah, going back to the point you were making earlier, Andy, I think is right on target. Since 1776, there's been a tug of war. What should government fund? And it's in the eyes of the beholder. And you look at some of the big projects, such as our national parks. There was a lot of pushback at that time funding the national parks. Yet countless number of people have benefited through the years. I think you can migrate that same discussion, same argument down to the local level. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to what should government be doing. It's what you can do at that particular point in time. And I applaud you and I applaud the others of trying to take advantage of the situation, of the circumstances that exist at that point in time. If there's some state delegate said it should not be funded, well, that's his problem. You're going to run the system. If you can get the system, you can get dollars for something, you'll benefit and future generations will benefit. If you cannot get money, well, that's a sign of the times. But I think you have to continually push what you're doing, and some are going to come through. And I think not only for the short term, but for the long term. So that's kind of a long way of saying I applaud you trying to get the grant money. If you're successful, more power to you. If not successful, try again tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's all about quality of life. I mean, you walk around city of Martinsburg and Berkeley County over the last few years, you've seen a lot of growth. Along with that growth, you've seen a lot of good things happen to be able to welcome people and to make people feel safe here in the area.
I mean, there are consequences of if you totally, again, I'm not political, but I can tell you it's difficult to plan a budget when you're not sure, but it's just not, I know that we're talking about the RAISE grant here, but the federal government gives a lot of money to the state government, which then filters into water projects, sewer projects, road projects. I mean, there is a filtering down approach to some of these investments. So there would be real impact across the board if all funding is stopped.
Yeah,
and that's just a practical matter.
That is, and I think what we're seeing now is an indicator. If it may not be stopped, it's going to be slowed down. And the question is, how will the state respond to the slowdown of federal dollars, and in turn, how will the municipalities and counties respond? This is going to be, I think, an interesting year in that regard alone. How do we respond to a reduced fiscal stream?
Well, we're talking a little bit about the sales tax you all have. It's going to be a hot issue in Charleston, whether or not to put it on the referendum for counties. You all have had a 1% sales tax in addition to the state, right?
Correct.
How much is that generated per year?
Well, it fluctuates, but it probably averages about $4.5 million a year.
For the city of Martinsburg, which is a relatively small
Fifth
city.
Largest in the state.
There you go. So, and how much of 81, what's the Martinsburg stretch of 81? Do you know how many miles it is?
I really couldn't tell you that. I mean, it probably starts there at Queen Street exit to the mall, or
Exit 12 to exit 16.
12 to 16.
Okay, so extrapolating out, that gives an idea of what a sales tax could do in terms of revenue generation if it were to come to pass. I just wanted to know the
county would be much longer.
Right, exactly. So you extrapolate the numbers and see what would happen.
Our sales tax is about $7 million, and about $5.5 million has been transferred into the general fund in order to cover largely police and fire pensions and other unfunded liabilities that we had. When the city passed sales tax several years ago, there was a commitment to actually fix and fund police and fire pensions, which then this past year we refinanced for another 40 years in order to close those pensions, in order to put new fire and police officers into the state pension plan, in order to eventually close our pensions because they weren't well funded. So our sales tax has not only allowed us to do some additional projects, but it's allowed us to fix some structural financial issues that we otherwise wouldn't have been allowed to do or could have done, including honoring our commitment, past and previous commitments, all the way from 1991 with regard to police and fire pensions. So the sales tax, had it not been for that revenue, the city's financial picture would have not nearly been as healthy as it is today.
When the tax was passed, did you hear reports from a lot of businesses who were complaining that people are not going to eat at my McDonald's, they're going to go to the Berkeley County McDonald's instead, not specifically McDonald's, but
in the beginning you hear a rumble for a little bit, but it just passes right through. So not that there was really no heavy conversation from people calling or knocking on our doors because of it. But in the beginning, just like anything else, you're going to have people come out and say, this is not something that we want, and in the long run, it benefits everybody.
And how long have you had the sales tax?
I want to say 7 years. Is it 7 years, Andy?
Time flies when you're having fun, but I'm trying to think.
It
I
could
was
be
at-
close to 10 years.
right.
I mean, I was part of that home rule committee when we received home rule, and I want to say it could be anywhere from 7 to 10 years back.
Were you on city council at that time, Kevin, or was
I
it
was.
previous to that?
2012 is when I came on council, and I was part of the municipal league when we were working on that home rule. So that it has to be 7 to 10 years.
We have 2 minutes left. If there is something that you guys wanted to make sure was mentioned before time ran out, now's the time to do it.
Well, I want to talk about this young lady last night that was she was the mayor for the day, and you know, we found her through her neighborhood called up during the decorating contest over Christmas and said, you got to come down and see what this young girl has done to our neighborhood. And she rallied the whole neighborhood, and the whole block was decorated for Christmas. And when I saw that and talked to her a little bit, I said, you know what? I said, I think you should be mayor for the day. And she did a fabulous job last night, coming in and sitting down, reading the proclamation for Black History Month and a few other things on the agenda. Even when we were honoring some of our first responders for saving the life of a woman and her dog in a fire, she was a big part of doing that. But it just gives me a great feeling to see the youth coming up and carrying on with some leadership roles.
When is your next council meeting?
We had one last night.
Mhm.
So the next one will be February 25th, and it'll be a budget workshop for us to be able to start that process.
Public input?
Well, public is it's open to the public.
Can you sign up and speak?
There's an opportunity for people to speak. They get 2 minutes to speak. If they want to do a presentation, they have to contact us, Gina Long, prior to that.
Good to see you, Mayor.
Good to be here.
Andy, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
Enjoy yourself.
I'm going to Pittsburgh.
You want to see
Next
the
week.
family?
I'm going to the Penguins game.
Oh, very good. Yeah, have a good time. I think they're playing the Caps that day,
Yes,
right?
they are.
Yeah.